Hey, beautiful people. I've got some good news and bad news. We can't do Johnny Pendleton anymore because he doesn't have any more videos. At least, no videos that I can find. So we can't do him anymore. God damn it. But I did find another creationist we can pummel, John Morris. Now, there is one thing about starting off with a new guy or gal, and that is I may have to repeat myself. I'm going to try not to repeat myself, okay? Because these creationists just steal from each other. So, go watch my other videos if you want that. If you think my debunking is something that you'd like to hear, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when I come out with new videos. Also, leave comments below and hit the like or the dislike button, as it also helps the algorithm. So, are you as excited as I am to dig your teeth into some new creationist that has very old, very worn out, and very easy to debunk arguments? Then let's go! By the way, I have no idea who this dude is, so what he says is going to be a surprise to me too. I'm just going to hit the points that I didn't hit in my John Pendleton debunk.
But now we want to talk about the age of the earth. Creation is what it is, but the Bible says creation occurred not very long ago. And if we're going to be biblicists, we're going to have to stand on that. And did you know there is a great deal of scientific information that supports that clear biblical doctrine that creation occurred not very long ago? The young earth. Creation not very long ago. Well, you got to start with a joke, right? Well, there's some early archaeologists. He says, take this granite bowl. It was dug up not far from here and dates back, I'd say, to early July. Well, where do they get the dates? Where do they get the dates? They find a rock, say, 200 million years old or 3 billion years old. Where do they get that number? Where does that number come from?
So I've never dealt with this dude before, and I wanted to know what he was up to. You can't take any of these creationists at their word. So I wanted to know if he really had a doctorate, and not just a doctorate like Kit Hogan has a doctorate. Lo and behold, he does. He got his Ph.D. in geological engineering from the University of Oklahoma in 1980, and in 1996 he became the president of Institute for Creation Research. And, by the way, he is the son of the granddaddy of American young earth creationism. No, there is no scientific evidence to suggest creation or to suggest that the Earth is less than 10,000 years old. But I guess you want to make your little presentation, so go ahead. And guys, for the things I've already covered, I am just going to skip them, and I have covered about the 10,000 years. That was a piss poor joke. And no, archaeologists don't just pick up an artifact and look at it and say, well, I think that dates to early July, so that's where we're going to go. And yes, please forgive me for my southern accent. That's a very good question, but he already knows where they get the numbers from, so that's kind of dishonest. And considering he's a PhD in geology, I would also think that he knows that archaeologists don't deal in millions and billions of years. That's paleontologists and geologists. But I do have to hand it to him. If you don't know where they get the numbers from, that is a very valid question. And it's a question that I'm going to answer here. So thank you very much, John, for asking that question because no creationist has ever asked it. And by saying that, I mean that no creationist has ever asked that question that broadly. They have asked it in radiocarbon or argon, but they have not asked it as broadly as where do they get the numbers from? There is more dating methods out there than just radiocarbon and argon. So good for you, John. In fact, you know what? I might actually enjoy replying to this seminar, and it is a seminar, so I'm going to have to go bit by bit because it's like 50 minutes long.
This is a wonderful time to be a Bible believing Christian. Did I say that? And a creationist. And yet evolution is in the process of self-destructing and really morphing. I'm really looking forward to that lecture this afternoon. But evolution is the idea that billions of years ago, non-living chemicals got together and made a cell, and that through the process of mistakes being made in that reproduction process has come all of this vast array of plants and animals that we see alive today and in the fossil record, and finally man. And if you let it go a little bit farther, well, some men are more equal than others, I guess. This is football season.
Project much?
So the mirror site I got this from said it was in 2010. It's a great time to be a creationist in 2010 when evolution just keeps blowing through your creation nonsense? I think not. The theory of evolution is not in the process of self-destructing. I don't even know where you got that from. As for morphing, yes, it is. That's what science does. Science changes with the data. But what does this have to do with geology? Evolution is not the idea that billions of years ago non-living chemicals came together to make a living cell. That is abiogenesis. You twit. You people know this. We have corrected you time and again. Why do you keep messing this up? Some men are more equal than others. I guess that's supposed to be some kind of a joke, but you just roughly made an accurate statement. I mean, people are equal in that they have equal rights, but they don't have equal ability. At any rate, you're a geologist, not a biologist, so I don't take anything you say about biology with anything more than a grain of salt. What does this have to do with geology? Get on with your geology presentation, please. At any rate, you say this is a good time to be a Bible-believing creationist. No, it's not. Because the farther we go in time, the farther we see that the Bible is neither scientifically nor historically accurate. What do we have to do to get you people to see this?
It's also represented by the geologic column, the geologic time scale. Start at the top, and basically the fossils you run into at the surface are recent fossils. You go down farther, and it's back in time. If you go farther enough, you get to the dinosaur era, and below that, before the dinosaurs. And then way down here, you get into the origin of life from non-life. This, as I mentioned last night, doesn't really exist in nature. This is not a presentation of the data. This is a statement of evolutionary dogma. This is propaganda right here. This is not what's discovered in nature. Something very different is really out there. Everybody would agree that evolution is unlikely. To go from fish to person, or from a frog to a prince, is a very unlikely thing to have to happen if you're waiting for beneficial mutations. But they say time is the hero of the plot. This is a very well-known evolutionist there at Harvard. He says, time is the hero of the plot. It may be unlikely, but time, give it enough time, the impossible becomes.
Finally, we get to geology. You know, John, if you want us to take you seriously, you really ought to hone in on the area that you're an expert in, says the woman who is not an expert and does not have a degree in geology. I know, but still, this is worth debunking. Okay, Nikolaus Steno proposed in 1669 that younger rock was put on top of older rock. Now, this isn't exactly true. You can find that in my John Pendleton videos. They are laid down that way, but they don't stay that way. Anyway, so we've got a dude in 1669 proposing this, and the theory of evolution doesn't come around until 1850 something. So tell me, John, how does a theory that came about almost a century and a half before the theory of evolution serve as propaganda for the theory of evolution? Do you guys even listen to yourselves? That doesn't even make any sense. Get your story straight. Again, what does the theory of evolution have to do with geology? And second, evolution never says that a fish turns into a human or a frog turns into a prince. That's magic, and magic is your theory. Try again. Wow, I misspoke. No, their quote unquote theory isn't even a theory because it cannot be tested, and scientific theories need to be testable. How many times do we have to tell you this? Are you serious? A George Wald quote mine? John, you should know this. Quote mining is not science, and the fact that you have to resort to quote mining means that your crazy thing isn't even science. So why don't you just be honest with yourselves and everybody else and say, look, we can't prove our crazy creationism with science, so we're not even going to try. We admit we accept it on faith, and let it be at that. That's at least honest.
It was mentioned this morning the difference between the data, the real facts of observation, and the interpretation of those facts. The facts we don't argue with. The facts are what we study too. It's just that we tell a different historical story about those facts. And the reason we do is because we start that observation process from a different presupposition or a different bias. If you start with a naturalistic bias and then look at the evidence, you can tell an evolutionary story about it. But if you start from a supernatural perspective, from the perspective that the Bible is true, then you look at the evidence and then you tell a creationist story about it.
Well, John, that honesty is refreshing. Yes, if you come to the table assuming the Bible is true, you're going to conclude that the Bible is true. What do you expect? However, if you come to the table with a naturalistic perspective, you're going to go where the evidence leads. So, yeah, thank you for that honesty. Scientists, by which I mean the real scientists, don't have a horse in this race. We go where the evidence leads. If the evidence led to a young Earth, we would conclude that the Earth is young, but it doesn't lead to a young Earth. I have to say, though, I am a bit confused. First of all, as I said in my John Pendleton rebuttals, nowhere in the Bible does it say that the Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old. And second of all, even if the earth was young, it wouldn't prove that the Bible is true, and it wouldn't prove you're God. So I'm not even sure what you want to accomplish by even trying to prove that the earth is young, which you can't because it's not. Um, that just wouldn't make sense. Your whole idea about proving the earth young, which is mind blowing levels of misunderstanding of what science actually is, and you should know better, John, because you're a geologist. However, it wouldn't do what you think it would do, which is prove the Bible right and prove you're God.
Like Grand Canyon. You can interpret Grand Canyon in light of what the Bible has to say, and the Bible says a huge flood covered Arizona, and that kind of flood would do that kind of destruction. And now we see that canyon, this eroded rut, a mile deep and 250 miles long and 18 miles wide, and we interpret that as the result of the great flood of Noah's day, not as the eroded remnant of the erosion of that little bitty Colorado River down in the bottom.
I really hope that you elaborate on this later, because a geologist, even a young earth geologist, saying something so stupid is just beyond my imagination. Now, the flood covering Arizona covered the whole earth. That is, the flood covered the whole earth according to you, which is really so stupid because there's so much evidence against that. Now, I could understand maybe if you said there were lakes that formed above the canyon like Kent Hovind does. Who knows? Maybe he got that idiocy from you. But anyway, just in case you don't clarify, let me go ahead and say right now that if the canyon was the result of the worldwide flood, it wouldn't be a canyon because the whole world would be like that. I also have to wonder, are you even going to try to explain away the different strata in the canyon? Because if you're not, this doesn't make any sense. I really, really hope that you do. I really do hope you go into more detail than John Pendleton did, seeing as how you're a geologist and all. And, I really want to know how a geologist, of all people, would say this kind of a thing and think it would make any sense. And yeah, I know that I get on to people for relying on their quote unquote common sense, which, to be honest, isn't really all that common when, you know, things in the laboratory take more than common sense. But anyway, but come to think of it, most of geology isn't done in the lab anyway, is it? It's done in the field. So, yeah, I mean, common sense would stay you in good stead in the field. When I started learning the truth about these things, I quickly realized I could not trust anything that young earth creationists told me. So, yeah, keep up those lies. Because you know what? In the end, you people are the strongest force for deconversion from young earth creationism than anything else is. So, thank you.
We tell a different story about the unobserved past. I think my story is better than the naturalist story. It's better science. It certainly fits the data better. But if you were choosing between the two, I think the creation is the better scientific story. As Christians, though, we need to start with what the Bible has to say. Because here we have the lab book, the record of one who did observe history In fact, did it himself, he says. And we have the record. He told us things that we otherwise wouldn't know for sure. He wrote us and told us what happened, and so we can know. And what the Bible says, particularly about history, it talks about from Abraham to now is on the order of 4,000 years. Archaeology is imprecise, and maybe it's 6,000, but I think more like 4,000. But okay. But then from the Abraham, you go back to the flood, and that, if you look at the English Bibles, the Masoretic text, it's only about 300 years.
And the guy in here, the Bible.
This is the Bible.
You question the words of the mighty Jimmy?
No, I'm reading it.
You better kneel down and...
I'm sorry, guys. I just couldn't help myself. I get tired of repeating, "We don't care about your book" all the time. Okay, but seriously, story is absolutely positively correct because it is a story. It has nothing to do with evidence or facts. Unfortunately for you young Earth creationists, you cannot rewrite physical history the way you rewrite cultural history. And yes, you have rewritten cultural history. It doesn't work like that. It's written in the earth. Well, John, you certainly haven't done much thinking on the subject if you think your flights of fancy are better than the scientific story, because nature does not care about your feelings. And why are you saying choose? The truth is not like ice cream, John. Like, you can't choose between vanilla and chocolate. The truth is the truth. You can't choose what the truth is, and the truth is what the facts are. Also, you say your God observed history and actually did it himself. That is an assertion, and assertions are not evidence. First, you have to prove your God exists. And second, you have to prove that that God created things. Also, I don't think you Bible thumpers really understand how this works. Your God did not write anything down. According to the Bible itself, he gave people things to write down. That's more akin to a woman who cannot write, saying that she wrote a letter to her boyfriend when the boyfriend knows full well that his girlfriend cannot write and that she had to have dictated it. And I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and saying that your God exists. And that's a big benefit of the doubt, John, because I am an agnostic atheist, and I do not believe that your God exists, and you have not even tried to prove that your God exists. Wait a minute, you think the Bible is historically accurate? You're either stupid, brainwashed, or dishonest, or some kind of a combination. And I really can't tell which one you are, but I'm going to go ahead and say you're dishonest. Well, I don't know about you, but that's about all of Johnny Morris I can take for right now, especially since I know he's lying through his teeth. Now, it's one thing if people don't know about shit and they're just making shit up. It's another thing when they're lying. However, I do have to hand it to old Johnny. As far as I can tell, and I haven't really seen past this, he hasn't really gone out of his field, so Yeah, I can give that to him. It's just too bad that he can't be honest, because if he was honest, he would not say he was a biblical literalist, because as far as I know, nobody is a biblical literalist today. And I just want to say that I don't know where these young earthers get the idea that the earth is 6 to 10,000 years old, because the Bible never says how old the earth is. How many times do we have to tell them this? I will be so happy when the science people no longer have to put out rebuttals of this nonsense, because people will finally see the light and believe in science. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm going to see that day, because I'm probably not, but it will happen. Call me an optimist if you must, but I have to believe that, because I mean, it's just I I couldn't go on without believing that. Well, that's it for today. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and if you would like to help me put out more videos, you can become a member of this channel for as little as 99 cents a month. Although there are facepalm inducing moments in this video, this guy's kind of boring. So I'm going to try to find a more entertaining person, although I will continue to do John Morris. Bye everyone, and have a nice rest of your day.